And we are recording.
Okay, so let's call the Tuesday, June 16th, 2020 Administrative Adjustment Hearing to order. Just a quick statement of authority pursuant to the Maryland Code Annotated Land Use Article Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 4, Zoning, Subtitle 2, Designation and Adoption, Section 4-205, and the City of Westminster Zoning Ordinance, Section 164-158.1A1. The Planning Director is authorized to grant administrative adjustments from certain requirements of the zoning ordinance. The Planning Director may grant an administrative adjustment in cases where the strict compliance with the requirements of this chapter would result in practical difficulty or unreasonable hardship, which has not been caused by the applicant. I'm sorry. So let's move on to case number 2001, application by Family and Children's Services of Central Maryland. And Andrea, good?
Did you want to do the swearing in first?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, thank you. Good catch. We were just talking about that too. So Mr. Burden, Andrea, swearing-in statement, do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth at this proceeding?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, now Andrea, I'm sorry.
On May 27, 2020, an application was submitted to the Department of Community Planning and Development for two administrative adjustments at 7 Schoolhouse Avenue. The property is the property is zoned R7500 and also has a compatible neighborhood overlay zone. The property, Family and Children's Services are the contract purchaser of the property, and the Mayor and Common Council of the City of Westminster are currently the owners. The two requests that we received an administrative adjustment for the parking requirements of the zoning ordinance section 164-208A4 and section 164-45.21D2. And I'll go into more detail about that. So the project is providing 27 parking spaces on site. And the agreement also has 8 spaces off site, but still this still causes a deficit and does not allow for the full amount of parking that was required by code. We also have, it is a deficit, I apologize, of 7 spaces. The applicant is also seeking an administrative adjustment for zoning ordinance 164-113 for the location and landscaping, which does require 3 shade trees, but on our plans that we have received on the landscape plan, there are only 2. Just to let you know how we have done the noticing of the property, we did sent out all the mailings. We also posted on the property. This was a subject of our June 11th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And one of the pieces that needed to move forward in order for the plan to be fully adopted is the fact that it would go through this administrative adjustment.
Thank you. And you did notify the neighbors?
Yes, we sent out on, I apologize. Yes, on May 31st, we had a notice in the newspaper. Then on June 2nd, the property was posted with signs, and also all of the adjoining property owners did get a letter in the mail.
Did we get any response from those letters?
There was one property owner who was curious as to where they could find information about the hearing on our website. The first thing I did was email them a copy of the application, as well as later on, once the staff reports had been posted to the website, I also posted the link to that as well.
Okay.
Other than that, I have not heard from any property owners. We did receive one letter back as it being undeliverable.
So there is no individuals requesting to speak today at the meeting?
I have not heard or received any notification of that.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing else. Do you have anything else?
I don't. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Burden.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to move through the proceeding. First, we're really appreciative for all of the local administrative support and moving through what has been a very complex project to do and a site that we have historically provided operations at. We're very excited about the project and have been successful in a very difficult environment, assembling, what will amount to about $5 million of investment in this particular site. But as you can see, the site did not come without challenges. To the greatest extent possible, we have worked with the planning department to address a multitude of things, but in this case, there are a couple of things that we were not able to fully meet. The parking is one. One of it relates to the request and the short, we're short about 7 spaces. One of the things that I provided was really a schedule, because we are moving all of our services to a central location. But what I tried to provide for the planning department was a schedule of services. It's essentially a 24-hour operation, but not one where all of the programs are happening at the same time. So for the medical adult daycare activities, those activities occur in the mornings from about 7 in the morning till about 3-ish. And then the counseling services generally start mostly in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and go until about 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. Generally, they'll accommodate individuals getting out of school and work. A lot of our case management staff are placed in the community. And so while the number of office spaces that, that we will have on the site will accommodate all of the staff, a lot of our staff, as I said, work off-site. And then finally, and what's most important and noted, is that because this is a family violence shelter, the number of spaces required for the number of units was I think 7. And one of the things that we've pointed out is that because we are serving victims of intimate partner violence, we've worked with the sheriff's department to talk through some safety plans and so forth. And one of the things that came as a result of that was a recognition that it's safer to not have the client's vehicles on the property, because it is in the middle of the city, and it would be easy for an individual to ride through, recognize the vehicle, and then know where the individual that we are providing safety for is located. And so any of the victims that would come to us with their own vehicles, those vehicles would be parked off-site, not at the facility, because we're going from what had been an undisclosed location for a facility to one that is a part of a larger unit. So that being said, we recognize that there's a requirement for a certain number of spaces just based on square footage and zoning and all of those requirements. But we do think that that because of our operations, that that the administrative exception isn't going to unnecessarily burden the neighbors or put a strain on the spaces beyond what we've secured or already on the site. Secondly, because it is a precarious site, it's a triangle that we're trying to put all of these things on, and all of the requirements for pervious surfaces and so forth created some challenges in terms of the placement of the building that would allow, and lots of grade changes and things on the site work that needed to be taken into consideration. And as a result of trying to make all of the major things fit, one of the challenges was getting 3 shade trees on as opposed to the 2 that we were able to make fit. We do believe that if you look at the existing building and behind it, where it says, it's marked in red on the drawing on the screen, outdoor recreation area, it's a very beautiful green, well-maintained area that already exists, and as well as quite a significant amount of landscaping that will be added. So while we're not going to able to meet the number of trees that are required, we do feel like that it's going to be a really beautiful and lush and green space. This space is currently maintained by a garden club that does, that takes care of all of the lilies, and they do vegetables and so forth for the residents that currently live in the existing building. And so, again, I think that, we would love the approval of the exception of that one less tree for the site.
Okay. So, and it's surrounded by alleyways,
That's correct.
right? And there's no parking allowed on the alleyways themselves?
Well, there's some off of the alleyways. If you look along the 36th Street side, you'll see some angled parking along the 36th Street side. On the Wance Alley side, while you can't see, they're not marked or striped, that is parking right where it says Wance Alley. I keep using my mouse as if I have control of the screen. But yes, right where she is. So that is also parking. And then there's on the front side of the building, on the schoolhouse side, there are spaces there as well. And then our agreement is with the church, which is just across the alley for spaces with them as well. So yeah, actually right where there's a pedestrian drop off, right where the mouse is, just there. Oftentimes, while we haven't even counted those as spaces, we park the buses there after we return the seniors back to the various parts of the county. We're able to use those spaces as well. So we have parking surrounding the building site, and then just across the alley.
Okay, and maybe Andrea can answer this. But the alleyway itself, the right of way of the alleyway itself, does not allow for parking. So there would be no impact to neighbors. Is that correct, Andrea?
I was starting to talk without being off of mute. I do not believe that they're allowed. I don't know for certain though. I don't think that anyone's allowed to park on there.
No,
Without it being a marked space, I didn't think so.
No, most of the people that live on the alley have garages, and so and they are all clearly marked that they're private property, and that you can't block a driveway or a garage.
I was just making sure. So there really is no impact for potential parking in the alleyway affecting any neighbors. All your parking is either on site being provided or at the church.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate it. Today, the primary purpose, and this goes for the next applicant as well, it's really the public hearing process to allow the public to provide comment. So unfortunately today, I won't be providing an actual approval or denial of the application. I'll take all this information into account, and based on the findings of fact, the information you provided, be rendering a decision for this case.
Right.
I can say, I think ultimately I would be looking at, I'm amenable to the request for the parking. I would be looking at those standards or hours of operation that you provided that demonstrates that the need isn't necessary. There's not a need for that parking because of how you operate. And that will weigh into my decision for this project. And for the landscaping, just for clarification, and Andrew, I hopefully can answer that. So it's one of the 3 trees in the area cannot be planted, but the rest of the site is meeting its landscaping requirements. Is it exceeding, or is it just meeting the requirements today?
Andrew?
Mr. Depot, for the landscaping requirements, staff provided Family and Children's Services an updated review. The second round comments for landscaping, we have not received the resubmission addressing our comments yet. For this request, for the one landscape island, which they identified as 860 square feet, per section 164-113, location and landscaping, there shall be one 2 1/2 inch caliber tree for each 350 square feet of such island. They've provided 2, and the requirement would be 3. But for the other landscaping, we haven't received a resubmission from our second round review comments yet.
Okay.
I'll follow up with our architects on that. I wasn't aware of that, Andrew. So
You know,
I'll follow up.
the hope there is that we do meet the remaining requirements of the ordinance and landscaping. So, okay. Do you have anything else, Mr. Burden?
No, I don't.
Andrew, or Drew, or Andrea?
Not at this time.
Okay. Again, like I said, I'll take all this into account. I will draft my findings and decision and provide that to you this week.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Depot, and thank you, Andrew and Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See. So let's move on to the next case, 2001, and application by, so I'll do the swearing in. I'll just.
No, I was gonna say it's 2202. I just wanted to.
2002, an application by the Celebration Temple of God. Mr. Moore?
You are on mute.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just want to do the swearing in statement. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth at this proceeding?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, Andrea, can you provide the staff report?
Yes. On May 7, 2020, an application was submitted to the Department of Community Planning and Development for one administrative adjustment at 67 Madison Street. The property is zoned R7500 residential. It is the location of the Celebration Temple of God Church. The administrative adjustment that they're seeking is for the setback requirements for zoning ordinance section 164, 147A. The reason that this is being requested is because in August of 2019, the church had applied for a storage shed to be located on their property. The church faces 2 streets, Madison Street and East George Street. For review purposes, the church has 2 front yards and 2 side yards. According to the zoning ordinance of 164, 147A, it requires that all accessory structures be in a backyard and prohibited in a side yard. That's why the applicant is requesting an administrative adjustment to allow for a storage shed to be located in the side yard. We did, as for our previous case, on May 31st, a notice appeared in the Carroll County Times. We posted the property on June 2nd and also did mailings out for all of the adjoining property owners. We have not heard anything back from any of the property owners, and nobody has reached out in any way regarding comment.
Thank you. You done? Is that your report? What's the size of the shed? I might have missed that.
So, actually, Mr. Moore, can you provide that information?
Yeah, so we've reduced it down to 16 by 22 feet to stay under the 400 square foot designation. to avoid further permitting requirements and construction requirements.
Okay.
So it's 392 feet, I believe.
One of the other things to note on the property, as you can see on the screen, the blue star is where the proposed shed is would be located. This property here is currently the Dr. Stevens, the pastor of the church the pastor of the church lives here. But this you see here, this is a paper road. It does not exist, and so when you look at this, it just looks like one parcel. So I just didn't want it to see for you to think that this was like its own parcel.
Okay.
So this road, this is just a paper street. Once again, it does not exist currently. And when the property owner did do a survey of the property, it did in fact show that this was all one lot.
Okay, that's important. Okay.
Yes.
Otherwise, it would have been an accessory building on a separate lot. So this
Yes.
maintains the accessory, so it would still be accessory to the church in this case as one lot.
Yes, and you can tell by the way, just the strange configuration of of this lot. And the church faces, the front is on Madison Street, but it also has the frontage on George Street, and there is no backyard at all.
Okay. All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions for you. If Mr. Moore, if you'd like to present your case.
Well, unfortunately, the pastor of the church should have been able to join us, so he must have had some technical troubles. But I think it's very straightforward. It's, you know, the way that the plat was surveyed indicates that there's no side yard, or there's no backyard, there's no rear, and based on city restrictions, you can't build a shed in a side location. So, speaking on behalf of the pastor, this is simply a matter of the way that the survey was constructed, and the fact that there is not a backyard is not really a meaningful thing for the neighbors, and the neighbors are all supportive of the church. So I think we're just trying to hope for the city to embrace the fact that this is just an unusual surveying situation, and that we're able to provide the church with that storage shed.
And this is solely just a storage shed? This is only for storage?
That's what it is, yes. Entirely storage, yes.
Andrea, do you have anything else you want to add?
I do not, Mr. Depot.
Yeah, again, Mr. Moore, as I explained, this is the primary purpose for this because it is a modification or adjustment to a regulation in the ordinance. That the primary purpose for this is to allow for public comment, interaction, or at least notify the public of the request. So I will take all the information provided in the findings and provide my my ruling with that.
Excuse me, Mark, can we pause for just a moment? I have the pastor on the phone and he's trying to get into the meeting.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
I believe the pastor is coming on.
Yes. So, me. Dr. Stevens, you are currently on mute. I'm trying to unmute. There you go. Can you
Okay.
hear us?
Yes, I hear you just fine. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Before we start, get back to before we start, there's a swearing-in statement. We've already went through the staff report. Mr. Moore already provided some input, and if you don't mind, if we can go through the swearing-in statement real quick, so you can provide testimony.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth at this proceeding?
I affirm.
Thank you. So if you could, any information you would like to provide or for justification for the administrative adjustment?
I did have, I'm gonna try to see if I can bring this up. No, I can't. There was a problem with trying to put the shed in back of the church, and I did have I couldn't bring it up, but between the church and the property next door, the property owner, he has a garage in back of the shed. I mean, not in back of the church, in back of the church, and it's only a 4 feet between the property, and the property line runs between the two buildings, the church, the back of the church, and the side of the other property, which is a garage, and there's a 4 feet clearance, and you divide that in half. I have 2 feet, and they have 2 feet, and that's the issue. So that is the main problem as to why there's a problem with putting a shed between 4 feet of clearance.
Okay.
And Dr. Stevens, we do have up on the screen, we do have a map, so we can see what you meant by where the garage is.
Yes, it's I don't know if you see my cursor, but this is the garage here, and a little area right between here is 4 feet, which you divide that in half. It's 2 feet on my side and 2 feet on the garage side. So that is the problem. So it would be more feasible to put it in to the side of the church.
Mr. Depot?
Yes.
Pastor Stevens, if I may, on the screen share, where my mouse is currently hovering at the corner of the two property lines, is that the shed that's in question?
No, that's not the shed. This shed belongs to the owner of the property here, and that is her shed.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. There's a shed there, but this shed belonged to the property here, and what we're talking about placing a shed in this area here. This is a garage. This is the church.
And it's the property that is behind the church on George Street, correct?
Yes.
That has the garage.
Yes. This property. This is the property owner here. He owns that garage because the line divides the church and his garage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the property is. All this property here belonged to this owner here.
Okay. Yeah, I just pulled up Google Earth to get a better picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As I explained to Mr. Moore, the primary purpose of this meeting is really to allow for the public to comment and for them to be part of this process, because this is a variance or adjustment to the regulations of the ordinance. So I won't be giving a ruling tonight. I will take the information provided, the findings, the information you provided, and in writing provide a determination as to whether the administrative adjustment will be granted. Just like the past one, I'm amenable to this request. I do agree with the findings provided by the staff in the staff report. So again, following this meeting, I will put together a ruling and provide that to you by the end of this week.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think if there's nothing else, I think that's the end of the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.